Hi everyone, Tony Tonkin here again from the Child Protection Party. I want to know how many of us are concerned about the number of kids that are killing themselves. There's an interesting article that Lauren Novak wrote in the Advertiser, I think it might have been last week, just talking about the number of kids now that are dying as a result of suicide. Now, for some reason, this is a very often ignored issue. For some bizarre reason, I don't understand that, because it really does concern me. I've been working with, over the years, a number of kids that have been in care who have been suicidal. And it fascinates me because when I meet up with these kids, I can see some wonderful potential. I see some qualities and traits that need to be admired. And I certainly admire them. But the people around them often don't, that those qualities that they have are stagnated, that they're not recognised, they're not acknowledged in any particular way. And I think it's about time that we started to make a stand for not just kids in care, but kids generally, as to how they feel about their lives, about the things that concern them, about the traumas that they've experienced in their lives that govern them, that determine their sense of self and who they are and how they choose to interact with their world. And a lot of these kids, I've found, are not heard. They're not listened to. They have no one in their lives that can talk to them in a more reasonable, sensible way, or that they feel at least comfortable with, about talking about how they think and feel about themselves. It concerns me that most of us seem to ignore these kids, whether they be in care or not. I don't think it's all that relevant, even though I guess the Child Protection Party, we're really concerned about kids that are particularly in care. But there is something about the way we ignore these children. There's something about the way that we see them as, I don't know, devalued, as not having a sense of meaning or purpose. There's something about the way we think about kids in general that kind of is still sort of somehow embedded in the 50s and the 60s, where kids were supposed to be seen and not heard. Whereas today it is important, because of social media and other things, that we listen to these kids, but we're not. And as a result of that, many of these kids are dying. Every death is unnecessary, but these kids feel so helpless and hopeless about their lives that they're choosing to end them. And I just want to refer to Lauren's article, and I better find it. That's me. God, where is it? So, Lauren, suicide, the leading cause of death among young people among young Australians, and I just want to talk about some of the stuff that she talks about, because this is relevant and this is information that we all should be conscious of. More Australian children dying by suicide than any other cause of death. And the latest figures warn older teenagers, older teens, are more at risk. It comes as call grows for better tracking of non-fatal self-harm and suicide attempts to help struggling young people before it is too late. Now, the data that she hasn't got here actually is about the number of kids that self-harm as well. So these are kids who, and this happens to males and females, not just females, and these are kids that are so distressed about their life in general, that they've got so deep emotional pain and trauma that they're looking to cut themselves as a means of release of that particular pain. Some of it's symbolic, some of it feels very real. So for these kids too, we're not identifying. Now, it doesn't mean these kids are suicidal. To believe that is a myth, but to understand that there are kids in such emotional pain, and we as a society on the whole are choosing to do nothing about it generally, and that we as a community are not listening to these kids, I find abhorrent. Data released on Wednesday by the Australian Bureau of Statistics show 29 children aged 5 to 17 have died by suicide in Australia in the past 5 years, or just more than 2 in every 100,000 children. Of the young people who died, 20 were between the ages of 15 and 17. Nationally, 513 5 to 17-year-old died by suicide over the same period, or 2.5 in every 100,000. Now, the statistic that alarms me here is from 5 to 17-year-olds have chosen to commit a 5-year-old. I find that horrific. More than half were aged 16 or 17. Confirmed that suicide remained the leading cause of death in children in Australia, while it ranks 15th among causes of death for total population, but around leading cause of death of children. So, on the other hand, while we're raising issues around young people that have died in the care of the minister, or young children that have died that have been known to the child protection system, the larger problem, any death is horrific, but the larger problem is the number of young people who are choosing to end their own lives. We need to go upstream and help young people see hope for their future. And this is what I was saying before. Develop tools to navigate tough times and reduce stigma around talking about mental health and accessing support. The impact of suicide can be felt across families, schools, workplaces, sporting clubs, and community groups. She said more timely data was also needed on suicide attempts to better understand and respond to distress in our community. And the problem with getting the data is that generally reports about suicide, particularly celebrities, is not reported because people copy those particular suicides. So this is a vital issue that we all need to find the space and the time to address. And the place by which we can start to address this is within certainly our own families. And I urge every one of you to, if you've got kids and you're finding that you're struggling to communicate with these kids, particularly older kids, that you seek some help from somebody that can help you to try and find ways to negotiate with these kids. And I know it's difficult. Sometimes I struggle to find ways to have conversations with, because I'm an old fart, so to have conversations with younger kids is also difficult, even though I do believe I work very hard at that. But I know it's not easy. And I know that if families have got a history, and that history says, you know, you haven't listened to me in the past, you've discounted who I am, it's dead hard to go in and find a way to talk to your kids and find out what's going on. And kids are very secretive. I know that there's a lot of stuff that happens on social media that we don't know about, and that, you know, we can't pry either, but we can build relationships whereby we can have conversations about what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And more importantly, we can have conversations about times when kids are feeling distressed and what that is like when they are distressed. And if we're not able to have those conversations, then there's something wrong with the relationship that we as a parent are having with our children. I'm just looking at some of the messages. So thanks for all of you. There's a lot of people who come online. Morris, thanks very much. And he says it starts with education. Why is there a significant diminished amount of males working in primary schools? And that's true. I couldn't agree with you more, Morris. Why are there so many? Why are there lack of males in the helping professions generally? It's a question I ask myself, given there's 20% social workers, and on one of those 20%, it's always okay for the female integration aide to put her hand around little Johnny. And I agree with all of that as well. We've got to this point whereby there's no touchy-feely stuff because of the possibility of being accused of something. I agree with all those things that Morris is saying, that we need more males there. But I'll tell you what, Morris, to be frank, we need more men talking about their emotional state as well. Now, the suicide rate, I don't know what it is, the split is between males and females. But I know that normally, generally speaking, women are less likely to kill themselves because they choose more passive methods, if such a thing, and whereas males tend to choose more aggressive methods of ending their lives, such as hanging and running cars into fences or walls or to poles or whatever. So, look, folks, if we really care about kids, we will do whatever we can to help them. And when it comes to kids that feel suicidal, have suicidal ideation, we need to make sure that we're working with them, that we're not working against them. And I know as a parent of 5 kids, it's really difficult when they're particularly in that 14 to 18 age group to find ways to negotiate better ways of being. But the one thing that I can say that I have discovered is that building a relationship with your kid, regardless of the shitty shit they might do, is better, to be able to have avenues of communication so that we can talk to them about what is happening in their world is vital. If you don't have that, I beg of you, please find ways whereby you can start having those meaningful conversations with your kid. And sometimes think about how tactile your relationship is. You know, do you avoid each other? Do you, give them a hug occasionally? Or how do you greet them? Do you greet them warmly? Do you demonstrate your care and affection for them appropriately? What is it that you do that makes them feel included? It's vital. These sorts of statistics we get, over the news is terribly alarming. And as a Child Protection Party, we're very, very concerned about all of that. And what I'd like you to do is, I'm trying to find that right one, and I can't. If join us, one of the things too, folks, is join the Child Protection Party, become a part of who we are and what we do, because it's this voice, it's our voice, it's the way we talk, it's the way we want things to be for kids. We want better outcomes for all children, and the only way you can do that is by joining us to make a difference. Thanks everybody for being with me. Take care and look after yourselves and make sure that you and your kids are safe.